And we are live. Hello, hello, everybody. Good morning, evening, afternoon, whenever you might be listening to this. Um, Welcome back to another episode of Chicanery. Of course, you have your two hosts. I am Danny, and we have JT.
Hello, once again.
And we have a special guest today, one Mr. Keontae McNeil. Say hello.
Hey, how are y'all? Thank you for having me today.
Oh, not a problem. It was absolutely our pleasure. And the reason why we have our good friend here is because we have the Daytona testing episode today. And, well, why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself, Keontae?
Uh, name's Keontae. I live in Concord. Kannapolis, North Carolina. I work for Racing Electronics. I am a radio frequency technician for them. Have been for well over 2 years now, and I was tapped on the shoulder to take on the responsibility of doing similar work out there for the IMSA paddock and all the supporting series. So it was it I was gonna take it out of the way, and I'm happy to do it. It's a lot of work ahead, but from just the test alone, it's gonna be worth it.
Fabulous. Okay, so Um, I guess before we launch into the proper nitty-gritty of, sort of the test weekend, so from a sort of a boots on the ground perspective, sort of tell me what that was like.
So we travel. Myself and Chad. That's my. He is the manager, sales rep of like road racing because racing electronic is taking a pivot with focusing on sports car racing as well. Now that you have the big explosion of popularity of the GTP car, and with now GT3 uh, being the standard. So they're taking a pivot there, and what we basically do is we're the first to come in. So what we basically do is, me as the tech, we ensure race control. Race control is able to communicate to the teams. You have fire and safety that also, that we also deal with. We have multiple repeaters and repeaters that we set up. That way, everybody's able to communicate clearly. There was a lot of headaches. There was a lot of, ooh, it was a lot of work, but we finally kind of got things ironed out. And after you do that, um, we also pass out locations of radios, whatever else from for fire and safety, track marshals, AMR safety. We work right in hand with AMR safety, so that's also pretty cool. Um, let's see, and then after that, we focus on Chad's more of the sales guy. Um, you know, sells our products, whatever else, to teams that might, that need different things. Myself, I focus on more of repairs of headsets, um, helmet like harnesses. Uh, there was a lot that I got to work on and had to kind of. It's almost like a spur of the moment type of thing. Like you just gotta go in there and be like, okay, I'm able to fix this. Cool, we move forward with it. If it's not something that's doable within that in an hour, I either, hey, Chad, you need to sell this person this, or we send it back to home station in Concord. Uh, Going out, talking to teams, seeing what they need. Like for instance, Magnus. I think they're supposed to be sending us a an invoice about some LMR 400 cable that basically, that connects to the top of their mast. They have a 100-foot antenna mast, and you know, and they've had the same setup for years. Just they needed some things repaired. So, just doing things like that. It's a lot, 12 to 15-hour days, but being around there, getting to meet people, getting to shake hands, getting to meet just like everybody's approach. It is insane just how approachable everybody is. You know the meme about the difference between NASCAR Twitter, Formula One Twitter, sports car. Like it's
Mhm.
legit real. Like everybody up and down is just so nice, so approachable, genuine, and everybody helps one another. It's crazy. Like I forgot somebody, like there was a team struggling with something and they didn't have a spare part or something, and one of the larger teams was like, hey, we run the same guard. Hey, just take this part and you know, we'll worry about everything else afterwards. Like it's really cool. So uh yeah, day in the life.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much for that. Um, and I think from sort of that'll kind of boots on the ground perspective, that'll lend a little bit further context because we're gonna jump sort of right into the real meat of the Daytona testing weekend. So the biggest thing was we had a number. I mean, basically everybody was there. We had the new Mustang GTD car was there. We had the customer. We had the Pratt Miller Motorsports Corvettes. The customer teams were unveiled a little later, and then we had stuff like the new Vantage, which I actually didn't expect to make an appearance at the Daytona Test weekend. Um, Not sure because I was able to watch some of the footage from Daytona sort of tertiarily, but did the Vantage end up turning any laps on field? If you know, JT? But yeah, so no, those were a handful of the things that we saw, and it was wild to see the new Mustang running around, sounding almost identical to the Cup car. It felt like.
I honestly don't like the way the new like Corvettes look. I know they have like it just looks weird with like they unveil it like might have been like yesterday or
Hmm.
something where it was like it just looks weird because they don't have like they're not yellow and they're like this like red, green, and like blue color. It almost
Hmm.
looks like the like I was joking like the other day in the group chat that kind of looks like the colorblind test they have you do at the eye doctor is what one of them looks like. I mean, then there's another one that's like yellow and black. That one's not too bad. It just I guess it looks a little bit bizarre to just not see like the like standard, I guess, Corvette colors, other than like the bright yellow and then the like gray silver-ish one.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. There's been a little bit of historical precedent for some blue race Corvettes in 2004. The last year of the C5Rs, they ran a sort of commemorative scheme that kind of looked like the Grand Sports from 93, 94, whenever that was. But yeah, I agree. This unique combination of like teal, orange, and red is it's a bit strange. Um, I mean, it's of course, it's a customer team. They have their own sponsors and the colors, sort of dictate that versus the typical Pratt Miller car, which is, functionally the new factory team. But yeah, like I said, you're absolutely right. It's a little goofy to see, but so let's see. So who else was at
I know Lambo was there, but they're not running Daytona, obviously. We talked about that
mm,
before. I mean, the car looks really nice, but it's a shame they're not doing Daytona. I honestly feel like they just should, but at this point, it's probably too late since the entry list is already out. So,
yeah, exactly. Yeah, the Lamborghini is super duper cool. I think it looks great. It sounds pretty cool. Not as good as the Cadillac, but it still sounds
nothing's
kind of
beating the
neat.
Cadillac. Unfortunately, that bar is just too high.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Um,
I mean, turned out
but
Lambo was the fastest, I think, in practice. I don't think they actually gave out any like solid numbers, which I mean, I'm sure they're not going to because they don't want other people that are also gonna see it other than just fans. But
Mhm.
hopefully that's a good sign for them and they won't like just crash and burn at Sebring.
Yeah, that would be nice. It would be cool for him to hit the ground running and be competitive. That would be very, very cool. Let's see. Looking at scrolling through IMSA's Twitter account right now. Like I said, I mentioned we got a quick sneak peek at the new GT3, the basically the updated Vantage GT3, which is wild. I'm not sure if we were supposed to see that, given that. So my
I mean, we did at this point.
I
It's
was just
kind of
about to
just too
say,
late.
yeah, my professional career, I come from OEM and road cars and things, and I'm like, Aston Martin hasn't mentioned anything about the facelift advantage. We've seen, some what I am assuming are
I think they
probably.
like teased it, but they didn't actually say anything for real.
Yeah, I was just about to say we've seen some late validation prototypes like at the Nordschleife, but I'm like, we have heard very little from Aston Martin about even the new road Vantage, and then here's the GT3 car just there. Um, which was super cool. I don't know if it ended up turning any laps, but there were definitely, like I said, there were those photos of it being, I think it was Only Endurance tweeted some photos of it being pushed through the paddock.
I found the new note because we were parked right next to Magnus. Like, the RE trailer was here and Magnus was there. And kind of looking at it, I think it's gonna take a little time to get accustomed to the new nose. But after looking at it like on the harder rate, I think due to the that dark blue that Heart of Racing runs, it just kind of suits, like, I guess it kind of suits like specific colors. Like darker colors, it just suits it very well. Um, I'm pretty excited. I'm pretty excited to see, what changes and what updates they go about with new fascias. So stay tuned.
Yeah, absolutely. I am definitely hyped. I have always had a real soft spot for the current Vantage, particularly in its road car capacity. Even when a lot of folks weren't super thrilled with it, I loved it. And given the new, more oval headlights, it almost looks like if anything, we're almost returning to kind of the way the old car looked to an extent. Um, because the front end was highly reminiscent of the old Vantage. So we'll see. Certainly again for me, my real peak interest is in you're going to be in the road car and seeing quite how all that shakes out. But yeah, I'm curious to see sort of what they do, and just as a fun little aside, because well, I love that sort of thing. Um, Heart of Racing also has effectively a Vantage that runs in Formula Drift at the moment as well. It is very silly. Yes.
Wait. Are I need to see this. That's insane.
Yes, it is. So it takes the body style of the current Vantage, but then it's a twin supercharged V12. It is
Oh,
absolutely
right.
wild. So if I'll be interested to see that car in FD maybe in a year or so. But yeah, it's the same Heart of Racing livery. It's the same dark gray on dark blue, but it rips it with Mustangs and S chassis. Yeah,
Gaten is really spending some money, isn't he?
yes, he is. But it's super fun. It's so dumb. I love it. But so yeah, I'll be interested to see the car in that capacity too, and whenever the car fully makes its public debut. Um, But I guess kind of moving on from that, do we have what are our feelings? And now that we've seen testing, we don't have any, hard numbers, but we have kind of an idea of where the field stacks up relative to one another. So what are sort of race expectations feeling like for this?
The Acura's running away with it yet again,
Oh, no.
and everybody else waffling around behind them.
Yeah.
I'm a little, I'm curious, because I'm kind of in the same boat, because it is literally, we literally saw Wayne Taylor and then Meyer Shank just, uh, for the most part, blitzing lot of the competition throughout the season, but just had to see. Hopefully Porsche is a bit more consistent in terms of being up towards the front. Maybe
They just need to sort out whatever reliability issues they had with their car going on last year.
isn't it kind of funny? I think that's the funniest thing, JT. I'm glad you brought that up because I remember when the Porsche and the Cadillac first started testing, when the Porsche was out there, everybody was like, prototypical Porsche, no reliability issues. It's gonna be bulletproof by the, and it was everything but that. Last year, it was all mess. It was a mess in WEC. It was a mess in IMSA. So we just have to see how it goes. I'm very curious to see if they truly are able to get more of that potential from out of that car. Cadillac as well, Chip Ganassi. How are they going to fare with if they cut down on the mistakes or some of the mechanical issues that they had last season?
I mean,
Another
truth be told, some of that was due to just them probably stretching themselves too thin because they were trying to do like they had two cars in WEC and then they had cars in IMSA and we're kind of doing like the O1, I think, kind of like going back and forth between both series. And it's like some of that, hopefully, with them just having one car and probably just two drivers on that lineup, they should be okay. And sort out whatever issues they have with the O1 spontaneously combusting at a moment's notice at the worst possible times. And they should be good.
Yeah, I agree, because we talked about that, fairly recently, the, O1 and its, penchant to, self-immolation, to put it, politely. And, I could say am still very curious about that, because none of the other Cadillacs seem to have that issue. And it's like, what are you guys
Hell,
what
no
exac
other GTPs or hypercars do that. I mean, except for
Oh.
Van Wall, maybe, that did it like maybe one or two times. But
Yeah,
like,
but
I don't know. I
yeah,
feel
no,
like they might be doing something.
yeah, exactly, and that was the kind of the point that I was getting to, is that, I would be very interested to know how exactly relative to the other Cadillacs, namely because, of course, it's the same chassis, how were Chip Ganassi operating that car? Because that's super weird, in my opinion, that none of the other ones had that issue, but it felt like every other round the O1 was pulled off to the grass on fire. Um, that
Either that or it ended up in the barriers because
well, that's because they have a very Cindy driver lineup that, either it's well, we talked about it on the Fraud Watch episode. It was very much Winnet or Bennett. There was no in between, with that team.
yeah, old Ragnar and Seabass there. I kind of find their dynamic funny. They are inseparable. They hang around like they are literally like step for step throughout the paddock. They eat lunch together. They're really really nice dudes. I met Sebastian years ago, like during Champ Car days. So uh, always been a real nice guy. Uh, but yeah, you're definitely right. Very, very, very Cindy lineup. It's kind of it. Now that I'm sitting there thinking about this, thinking about the uh the the Pippo Duranis of the world, the Bourdays, the Van der Zanders, eh, and formerly like Richard Westbrook. GM is pretty good with picking some very aggressive drivers.
Mhm.
uh Bourdais isn't as bad at times, but sometimes when he loses patience, it's very noticeable.
I
Uh,
feel like Bourdain is probably the most mild, which is saying something because I mean, to be honest, I feel like we might already have a little bit too many terrorists in this race as it is, and I was kind of hoping, I'm like, you know what? I think Vassar Sullivan should put Kelvin Vanderlyn on their lineup since he's with Lexus now in the World Endurance Championship. And that obviously that didn't happen. It came out that it's two others, Mike Conway and then like some other guy. Can't remember his name. But I'm like, you know what? Maybe that was for the better because I think we would be pretty close to having a full blown terrorist off to the point where We wouldn't even have to rely on LMP3s causing full course yellows every other like hour because you just have that.
Yeah, exactly. It's yeah, probably nice that we didn't. And the other driver is Ritomo Miyata, by the way. Um, but um, but no, I think you're probably right. But yeah, no, GM definitely has a habit of picking up some drivers that are very aggressive.
I mean, even Porsche's number six lineup. Somebody was on Reddit joking about how that car will either win the whole race or end up wrecked by the first hour.
Yeah,
Which
it's
is
pretty. That's my brand.
yeah, I was just about to say. I think that is not an inaccurate an inaccurate prediction.
Mm.
Words are hard, but no, I think you're absolutely right. So we'll have to see what happens there. Certainly I'm kind of it's one of those no matter what I'll be there kind of things. Because it will be very funny to see if the race, particularly the GTP field, descends into chaos. That would be very fun. But it'll be almost like P3 never left.
I know
Yeah,
something else
they
people
don't
did
need it
talk
now.
about was
Hmm?
on, I guess, on Twitter. I think it was mainly NASCAR fans pointed out that I think it was like over by the Le Mans chicane, it might have been. They took out grass and it's now pavement. And I think that was because of Ryan Preece's crash. They decided that they're getting rid of the grass and now it's just pavement over there. I don't know if that will have any impact on the race per se for the Rolex race. I'm not too sure. It might be, I don't know, something with like some goofy thing with track limits happening. Hopefully not though.
Yeah, I was just about to say, I think the biggest impact in that section is going to be track limits. That's an issue at the best of times. Um, now granted, it looked like a rather, at least in some of those photos that filtered out, it looked like a rather aggressive curb there. So
Hmm.
potentially, if you try to straddle the curb, you'd probably beach the car if you weren't careful. So I don't know quite in sort of race scenario and like during qualifying, I don't know quite how that's going to pan out. We'll have to see. But I don't think it's gonna have a huge impact overall. I think, they've been paving that section, and obviously, I think the biggest thing is gonna be for NASCAR Cup. Because I mean, let's be honest. I mean, that's on the backstretch, and that's been kind of a treacherous area forever, basically.
Hmm.
Even post the sort of roof flaps era. Cars can still generate a little bit of lift if they get punted down the apron at the wrong angle. So I think that'll NASCAR will see the, safety benefits more so than IMSA is going to necessarily notice. But it'll be interesting to see if drivers start taking the piss with track limits in that spot now that it's paved. I don't know.
That'll,
I guess, like I said, I guess we'll see.
that'll definitely be interesting to see how it plays out. Especially throughout the duration of the weekend, and if any adjustments need to be made to because I didn't get a chance to like walk the track or anything else like that, but from what from what drivers have said, that curve is pretty the curve that they put there is pretty darn aggressive. So never know, you might see some possible changes with it or adjustments with it. We'll just have to see.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because I was actually when I saw those photos, I was like, Jesus Christ, that's
Hmm.
huge. And I again, I know why they did it because it was very clear. This is not paved for you to drive on it. The course does hasn't changed fundamentally.
I mean, but see, that's the problem with why track limits are like such an issue in racing and like all racing series because you have series and then like the track itself will like they'll have the track and then they'll have the area that is not the track where it's technically the track but not really the track. And then obviously they're like, oh, they don't want drivers driving over there. And then drivers, being drivers, are like, well, it's paved. So that means I should be able to race over there. And then they go over there. And then, I mean, hell, you had one race this year where the entire DTM field decided that the track limits for, I think it was like the Red Bull Ring, was going to be all the way to like the fence at some turns and they couldn't do anything about it because quite literally everybody raced there. That was where the racing line was, and they just had to sit there and be like, "Well, we can't delete everybody's lap time." And then you had the stupid thing with F1 being like, we have so many track limit violations that we have to wait until after the race to sort through all of it.
That was also Red Bull Ring, wasn't it?
I think
Yeah.
it was. And there were copious issues at Coda as
Oh,
well with track limits and
Coda
stuff.
was a mess too. It wasn't as
Hmm.
bad as the Red Bull ring, but it was also a mess.
Hmm.
especially, I think it was especially during qualifying. It was bad. So we just had.
Hmm. Yeah, and I mean, funny enough, post the Coda race, when I sat down with Bria, we had a quick chat about sort of track limits violations, and the like. And then shortly thereafter, JT and we talked about basically had a segment devoted to track limits. And yeah, it's trying to figure out a way to police that is just it's difficult. Um, especially, we talked about it before, the multidiscipline circuits, because different circuits or different series require different things in terms of, safety and what they require, but also again in terms of track limits. So, having, grass is great, but then, stock cars take off if it's a little wet, or having gravel is great, but then you're gonna send Moto 1000 and Moto GP driver, a rider, sorry, ass over tea kettle if they end up out in the kitty litter because the bike's digging. It having tire bundles is great, but maybe they don't diffuse enough energy for a particular series. So there's a safety thing. So then what do you do? And it's that constant give and take, push and pull that makes it very, very difficult to figure out exactly what to do. But then also with the track workers, or the track owners having as many series as these of tracks as absolutely possible. That's how they make money. That's how these tracks operate. So they want as many folks as they can pack in there in a fiscal year. They're gonna want, but it means that there really isn't a sort of uniform unilateral way to deal with this, and that is the issue. That is really where the challenge lies. So, well, like I said, then I don't really know what the answer is to this because, well, and clearly nobody else does either, given that it feels like this is I would say a perennial discussion, but truth be told, this is multiple times a year across multiple series. We end up having the conversation about track limits. So, clearly, I would say nobody right now has a good answer to that. But yeah, we'll see if, they make any adjustments to that section with that gigantic sausage curve of death. And what ends up happening with that, if anything. Um,
It's not gonna be fun if if an MX5 decides to launch off that damn thing. I tell you that much.
yeah, let's say it's going to space if that happens.
It'll turn into those little boost ramps you see in Mario Kart.
Oh, yeah. Or like, what first popped in my mind is when you have like those wild in iRacing, those wild netcode induced crashes where somebody, gets hit up the rear and then the car in front
Mhm.
just gets launched into the stratosphere. That's basically what's gonna happen with these cars, certainly if they keep it and somebody gets a little too aggressive with the curbs in that
Absolutely,
spot.
absolutely.
Or like that F2 race at Monza in, what was that, 2019? Where that sausage was it? No, it was like 2020 or 2021 when that curb at Monza coming out of Parabolica
Oh,
on the
that
outside.
was that was that F3 accident, right?
Oh, was that F3? I couldn't remember if that was F3 or F2, but yeah,
Mhm.
same thing where that car ended up getting launched to space coming out
I
of
mean,
there, and
either
they
way,
basically
we know the answer is not putting sausage curves, whether it be F3 or NASCAR at the Indy Road Course, where they had to take the whole curb out because people were like messing up their cars so much and like just driving over it and getting like launched off of it. Like again, go like a fucking Mario Kart boost ramp.
hmm
I still want to know who had the bright idea to lift and make those curves round and then have sausage. I was like, what is this design? And then they had to sit there and take everything out, and that was a whole mess. That was a whole mess that weekend. Made good memes, but it was a mess for the teams and drivers. I tell you that much.
hmm Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, so no, we'll see what happens. But as for, I guess, further race expectations, say, how are we feeling, especially with what is effectively the new GT3 class? What are we feeling is going to happen there? I feel like with so many chassis and so many teams, it feels so
Well,
wide
first of
open.
all, I hope
What?
that at least FAF gets their wish of actually being competitive at Daytona this time, considering how atrocious their Daytona was this year, because the BOP on the Porsche 911s are so dog.
Mhm.
So hopefully they actually can do something this time.
I'll say this much. There's a reason why Fab did what they did. Because of the big turn to GTP hypercars, Porsche had to sit there and migrate their best engineers to the top of the class. And now you have these newer engineers, possibly less experienced with the 911, and now they're kind of hurting on the GT side with like strength of their drivers, their teams. Who is the primary Porsche team on the GT side now? I don't even think anybody really knows. Uh, because I know
Yeah.
you have Kelly Moss, you have Wright. Well, Kelly Moss is more of a privateer. I don't think they have any. I had to look at the driver lineup. Wright has always been there because the Patrick Long affiliation. Um, I don't even know who the factory GT team is anymore. I couldn't even put. I was like, who is the primary team now that Faf moved to McLaren? I don't even know. Even some there was an individual that came into our trailer. He was like, yeah, the 911's dog and the BOP was just it wasn't because what FAF was doing. FAF had representatives there. They were under they were basically like understudying with Inception. Kind of getting the feel for the McLaren because they didn't bring a car there. Uh, they didn't have a car ready for the test, so there was some FAF personnel with Inception all test weekend just to you know get a feel and an understanding for the car. And this is more of a personal preference, y'all. That 296 sounds like ass. I hate
Uh,
the sound of the 296. It is absolutely atrocious. It I don't know what Ferrari did in terms of engine design. It don't sound good. It don't sound good. It doesn't have a distinct sound. It remind like I think JT said it best. It's like Gran Turismo for like A spec sounds. That's
which
what
is
it makes.
which is such a shame because the road car 296 sounds absolutely incredible. What they've done with intake and exhaust tuning, it sounds like a little V12. It's incredible.
I will say this much: at lower RPMs when it's coming out the paddock, it sounds decent. But on track, full song, it no, just no. I can't. Like I was so disappointed. I
Yeah,
was
that's
like,
a
oh,
bummer.
that's it. I was like, oh, that's how it sounds. They didn't really do much with it, but
Truth be told,
it,
the
if the car's
Corvettes
good, the car's
also
good.
sound horrible.
Yeah, the Corvettes
No
aren't
shade, but
aren't
they
great
sound
either.
terrible.
Yeah,
I do like the downshifts on them though. The downshifts are I will say when you hear the downshifts, you're like, yep, that's the Corvette. And I will say the downshifts do sound pretty good, but the of course, the Lamborghini, the Mustang is its own just and actually the Acura has a very because Gradient's still running the NSX. I do quite like the sound of it. I don't know. It's just personal preference type of thing.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, I a couple years ago, actually, that actually might have been the very, very beginning of 2021. Because Marshall Pruitt periodically sticks his
Mhm.
recorders in the cars, and he'll do an episode of his pod that's basically just uh engine noise, engine slash exhaust noise. And he did one in the C8R, and yeah, definitely off throttle and kind of lowish RPMs. The Corvette sounds absolutely
Mhm.
incredible. Yeah, you get up into the higher registers, it's not great. Truth be
Yeah.
told, when the C8Rs were testing, my brain, I initially thought it might have been like a forced induction V6, just to tell you. just to sort of go to show there. But yeah, like I said, lowish, like so low RPM, off throttle downshifts, I think sound great in that car. Yeah, it's such a shame that the 296 isn't any good. Because the 499P really isn't that great either. But I'm like, okay, well, that's a prototype, and they've had to significantly rework the V6 to make it work in that car. But I'm like, surely the 296 hewing much closer to the road car should sound better. And the fact that it
Mhm.
doesn't is kind of depressing. 'Cause like I said, the road car sounds absolutely incredible, um, all things considered. But yeah, the Mustang, hearing that footage of the Mustang running around on the bank is like, oh my God, it's so good. It sounds as funny, even though it's I mean, of course, it's not the Cup engine, it's two completely different, as opposed to the 5.8 that they run in Cup. It's the dual overhead cam 5.4 in the Mustang, if I remember correctly. It's wild how much that engine genuinely sounds like the NASCAR Cup engine. It's, I think, as close as we're gonna get, unless Hendrick chooses to run Garage 56 at Le Mans again. This is, I think, as close as we're gonna get to a giant brick with a giant V8.
Yeah, it you can certainly tell when it's coming around. That and it's funny. Everybody's saying, "Oh, V8 sound the same," but you hear the Mustang go by, you hear the Lexus go by, and then you hear the Mercedes go by. They're three completely different tones. I mean, the the Merc is very, very, very brutish. It is very brutish when you hear it go by. I absolutely love it. I love. I don't know. I'm just a person that I enjoy like that brutishness of a V8 is just it's so nice, and the Lexus has its own special song. So it was really cool to see all of that. Just hear all those different noises and then be to the point. Oh yeah, this is that, that is this, and the Lamborghini, the hypercar, is gonna take a little while to get used to, because we're so used to hearing the V10 in the Huracan, but the GTP I think is gonna take a little getting used to with the twin turbo V8. So it sounds okayish, but once again, it's just something you gotta accept for the hypercar.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, the different sounds are fun. We are so far beyond, the days of Group C and the giant, you know, 6.5, 7 liter V12s that basically powered like everything for a decade. We have discovered, well, a combination of, some, homologation requirements and just broadly speaking, performance that just, the force induction V6s, the turbo V8s, you know, is just that's quick. That's what works in today's world. And yeah, you get used to it. Because to be fair, like I didn't like the way the Corvette sounded like at all when it was new, but I've, come to appreciate some aspects of the noise. Like, the Mercedes is super fun because it still uses that old gigantic V8. Um, that they were running in the old SLS GT3 eons ago. And then, stuff like, the twin turbo flat plane cranks that like BMW uses. And actually, all of the European GTP cars actually use that. So, yeah, just different aspects of the noise and different aspects of, how they go about generating that noise. And I still think it is super duper fun. But yeah, so to move on, I guess, to the sort of the news portion of the proceedings. Um, we had alluded to it earlier, but yes, Vassar Sullivan had sort of confirmed the rest of their lineup. So yeah, we've got Mike Conway and Ritomo Miyata as the driver lineup there, which is I think honestly, I think that's a good lineup. I just certainly don't have any issues with that. Anybody else? Any thoughts there?
I don't.
No. Oh, excuse me. Go ahead, JT.
No, I'm just saying I don't have any issues with it personally.
None here either. kind of curious to see how. Oh my goodness, how do you pronounce his name again, Danny? I apologize.
Ritomo Miata?
Uh, is it Miyama or Miata?
Miata.
Miata.
Miata. Oh, okay. All right. I just wanted to make sure I didn't butcher it because he will be full time in F2 as well. So it's
Oh,
gonna
I
be
didn't
cool to
realize
see
that.
how. Yeah, I think he's gonna be full time in F2 winning the uh after winning the Super Formula Championship. So it's gonna be interesting to see his growth and everything because from the few Super Formula races I was able to see, he is him. I just say that much. He is certainly him. And Mike Conway is always a sure shoe, so you can't go wrong with him.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was feeling. Now, like I said, I didn't realize Ritomo was going to be running F2 as well. That's quite the schedule. But yeah, I mean, I think he can do it, and I think it's I like I said, I think it's a pretty good driver lineup. I certainly don't have yeah, any qualms with this. And I guess speaking of driver lineups, we talked about it a little bit before, but Lamborghini has also confirmed their hypercar lineup.
Yes, JT's favorite lineup.
We don't have a video component to this, but she is just shaking her head and
Grosjean and Kvyat. Oh my god.
yeah.
Well, at least they won't be in the same series in the same car together. They'll, Kvyat be over in WEC and Grosjean will be in IMSA. Now, if they were together in the same car, I'm just like, best of luck. I
Yeah,
already have
it
other
is.
people with Delora
Yeah, best of
standing
luck.
over that
Hopefully you have
Lamborghini.
plenty of money to dish out on repairing the chassis every week.
Hey, I'll put it this way: Iron Links has plenty of it. Trust me, money is not an issue with Iron Links, Iron Dames. Money is nothing.
Yeah, well, they're gonna need to be writing those checks. Yeah, this is a case of the most driver lineup of all time. I I mean, just especially for a factory lineup too. It's just like Jesus Christ. It's like in the Volkswagen group broadly, its driver pool is gigantic. It's like you really mean to tell me y'all couldn't have found anybody else other than use Yahoos to drive the car?
I mean, from a marketability standpoint for both organizations, you get most teams at least have like one big name that everybody knows from the likes of watching Formula One or everybody has that name that just sticks out. So from a marketability standpoint, it's probably helping Iron Links and Iron Links more than anything else. So uh, we'll just have to see. I don't know. I just hope that they survive all their respected events and go from there.
Yeah, that's really about all we can hope for with this. Like I said, I just look at this as like, oy vey. But I mean, more power to them if
I'm
whatever.
still not sure who crashed their car during testing that they were doing it like in like Spain or something,
Oh
Valencia. I don't know what
yeah.
it is
I
because I
forgot
know they
about that.
crashed it. I don't know
Hmm.
who it was
Was that
who
Paul
did it.
Ricard?
Is
I
that
think that was.
Paul Ricard or Barcelona? I don't remember where
It might
exactly
have been
that was.
Barcelona.
Yeah. But yeah, I
I
don't
think it was
know.
Barcelona. I think because Valencia is just on my mind because that's where Formula E was doing their testing off season, and they had that like fire.
Hmm. Which is still
Quick question: has any more news come up about Meyer Shank and Alpine being a thing in the future, or is that
I've heard
still?
No, I don't think
yes,
so. I've only seen like one article about it, and that was
mhm.
it.
Yeah, I was just about to
Mm,
say I've heard some rumors and some grumbling, but nothing concrete enough to certainly jump on.
Because I think they mentioned a little bit more about it when they like. I think there was an article come that I don't know who published it. I don't know if it was IMSA or if it was somebody else, just like random like sports car journalist site. But I
Mhm.
think there was more speculation about it because they were talking about like Colin Brown and how he was planning to move back up to GTP from LMP2 when Meyer Shank eventually rejoins IMSA.
Mhm.
And I'm assuming if they do rejoin IMSA, which they probably will, it'll probably be with Alpine because at that point I think Alpine will have also moved some of their operations to the states and not just be the World Endurance Championship.
Yeah, so I did a little pardon me, while you were talking there, I did just a little bit of quick Googling. The most recent thing I can find about any developments was back in October.
Okay.
And Alpine had confirmed that certainly that they had talked to Meyershank Racing about the possibility of running the A424 in in IMSA in like 2025. But I mean, again, it seems like it's just initial discussion. And then the other big thing, and I mean, I guess with racing and certainly the way modern racing works, maybe it is less of an issue. But my brain says is that given that Alpine has precisely zero presence in the United States in any capacity other than the fact that they ship two F1 cars here 3 times a year for the various American Formula One events. Alpine
Mhm.
doesn't exist here. So unless this is going to be indicative of perhaps them finally breaking into the U.S. market, it really doesn't make sense. If I'm being perfectly honest.
Yeah, I think I think it's Laurent Rossi mentioned that he wants to bring the Alpine brand to to the states, but I still don't understand because I think nobody would really know about unless you were born around that time where Renault had like a small presence in the United States for maybe like what I think it was maybe like a decade or something like that, if that. And a lot of people don't know about Alpine. I mean, it's usually people who know about Alpine are like hardcore car enthusiasts.
Hmm.
So I don't know. I don't know if it would make sense for them to do that or possibly use Nissan branded, which I would personally love to see. I would love to see Nissan get back into sports cars. I mean, you have the Z right there. I'm just
You
saying,
know,
I'd
we
love to
need
see it.
Mazda back. We need Mazda. We need a Mazda GTP.
It's well, Mazda right now. I think Mazda's in a place where with the MX-5 where they're content with the MX-5 series and just dealing with that. And now that uh Wayland is a primary sponsor, there it's not all you know it's not all them just putting all that money into now they have a title sponsor where they can kind of hopefully that kind of helps, but from I don't really see Mazda. I don't see it unless they get back into the sports car market, which I highly doubt, because they're pretty much a luxury brand now outside of the MX-5. I mean, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, so there's actually quite a bit to kind of unpack in all of that. So yeah, we'll have to kind of see what happens with that. Yeah, Laurent Rossi had definitely talked about wanting to enter the U.S. market, and then he was promptly sacked in the middle of the summer. So I mean, I understand corporate momentum being that as it is. That if he had already laid the groundwork and gotten that in motion, and given that Alpine and the Renault group at large, they are not the Volkswagen group. Hell, they are not even, like GM or Ford. I don't think they have the money to halt that level of corporate momentum. Um, but
That makes sense.
but I like I said, that's about the only context that I see this continuing. And certainly in this, in Renault or sorry, rather Alpine, Renault, entering the US market with like Nissan. Definitely, say when the A110 was new, I could have seen that being a thing. However, because of the whole scandal with Carlos Ghosn, French-Japanese relations have chilled significantly in the wake of that. Um, so I don't quite know what's going to happen with that either. So, there are lots of potential avenues, but kind of in the same breath, you also look at just recent happenings and it then suddenly looks, 75, 80% less likely that it would actually come to fruition. So, we'll have to see, but that's about the only way that Alpine joining IMSA really makes sense to me personally. Um, would be through some sort of road car tie-up of some description. Because, yeah, certainly to your point, Renault was, as a full-fledged automaker in the US, yeah, they were like 10 years, 15 years. And pretty much the only thing they brought over here really was effectively an Americanized version of like the Renault 5. That was really it, which was aptly named the Le Car, for those of you who are unaware. Um, that was like it. And Alpine has never, well, even globally, it's never had a huge presence. I mean, you had the A110, the original A110 in the 70s, but then you had like the 210, the 310, the GTA, the Turbo Le Mans. But, all of those models, over 30 years, they built maybe 5,000 of them total. Across all of those, production numbers were always super duper low because even in Europe, it's very, very rare to see one. So, I don't know. Alpine, for me, certainly, again, putting my kind of OEM brain on for a second, is a brand that I think is kind of strange. And I it feels like we need a more solid sort of business strategy of how this brand is going to proceed in the future. And then is going to subsequently need a little bit more investment because the A110 was effectively developed on Renault scraps, effectively. The powertrain is from a Megane, the whole powertrain, actually, the engine and gearbox, and a lot of the basic bits. The chassis itself is unique, but from what I understand, some of the extrusions, again, are Megane kind of Clio-esque in the way that it was put together. The idea being to keep it relatively small, relatively light, relatively affordable. But I don't really think you build a sports car brand off of that. Certainly not one that's meant to be vaguely aspirational, like what clearly Renault wants. So, yeah, we'll have to see what happens there. But, having all that massive digression aside, um, it would be a real weird tie-up for Meyer Shank if they're going to return to IMSA in, a couple of years. But, certainly weirder things have happened, I guess. But speaking of weird things happening, and I guess this isn't weird, but that was actually somewhat expected because there had been a lot of talk about that. No tire warmers for Le Mans. That is a thing. The FIA has really been pushing to reduce tire warmers. They wanted to pull them from Formula One wholesale, but the teams rebelled, and so they had to backtrack on that. But that's going to be wild having no tire warmers. So those puppies are going to go on the car cold and they're going to have to basically trundle around for a couple of laps to get some temperature before they can get going. I know the driver concerns about, safety and whatnot, having the tires that cold, but I think that is a fun extra strategic dimension because it means you can't go out and just rip it. You got to actually be careful. And it means that, hitting marks on pit stops are going to be that much more important because if you lose any time, you're going to be so screwed on the outlap. I think it's kind of cool, but what say the gallery? What say you, JT?
JT, you want to go first?
I mean, I guess, have any too, I don't really have any opinions on it other than the fact that I know drivers are just gonna be pretty upset about it. Um, I mean, I haven't seen any drivers so far complain about it, but obviously would it can change, obviously. Um, I mean, it might be like the same scenario that happened, like I think it's Spa where somebody like been the Ferrari hypercar coming out of the pits and bro was sitting there like with his like hands and his head on the side of like the road, and it became a meme. What's gonna happen is more
Mm,
stuff like that.
yeah. Well, and that's I guess and that's kind of my broader point is, it's gonna take a little bit more, frankly, skill and attention to not throw it away on the outlap. And so I think certainly early races, I think if this sticks, I think we're gonna see a lot of this. But what about you, Keontae?
Uh, I well, me that is just gonna make that the night portion of the race that much more important. It's gonna put a lot of it depending on the ambient temperature. That Le Mans weekend is gonna be so important for those for the drivers to be on the wheel during the night portion of the race because if it gets chilly out there, it's gonna it's really gonna shake things up, and I think that's what I think that's what they want. Uh, put more into the driver's hands. Let we already know these all these drivers up and down the paddock can go flat out. That's not a question. But working up to that point to get your temperature, I mean your tires within their working, within their working range is a skill in itself. So I think it'll be really interesting. I honestly can't wait to see it, especially the night portion of the race. It's gonna change the whole dynamic of the race.
Yep. No, I completely agree. I think this is gonna be kind of wild, and I am here for it. But I guess before we close out this episode, first of all, are you gonna be at the 24 hours of Daytona, Keontae?
Yes, I will be there for the Roar and well, pretty much all events. There are even some standalone events like St. Pete. I'll be there
Okay.
because we'll have MX5 and I think Porsche Cup will be there. Mid Ohio, it, wonderful track. The facility is not that great.
Mhm.
Um, and I think VIR. Um, Yeah, it's a couple standalone events, but I should be there for all supporting all the events throughout the season, and I'm excited to do it, and hopefully I have some good stories to bring back.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we might. Well, actually, might. I think we're gonna have to do sort of when we do our post Daytona wrap. We'll have to have you for that. So I guess, and here's the other question. I say, is this your first 24? I'm assuming you've done probably a couple of these at some this point.
Oh no, me traveling for
Mhm.
work is completely new.
Okay.
I've been at the shop for pretty much the entirety of the time, and now they have me going on the road. The nice thing is that I'm in Missouri, so you might have 90 to 100 days worth of travel compared to dealing with something like Cup or something like that where they're just gone pretty much 10 months out the year. So it's a little reprieve here and there, and so it'll be nice to kind of balance things here at home and balance things here at home well and be able to travel with no issues. So uh, it's going to be fun because the week of St. Pete the weekend that we work St. Pete, we go straight to Sebring. So
Ah,
that'll
okay.
that'll be interesting to see everything unfold there. That's gonna be great. Uh, so yeah, I'm excited.
So
And
are you gonna try and do all stay up all 24 or
we're gonna have multiple reps out there, so
okay.
we're gonna more than likely we're gonna like stagger it. Like somebody does, like we have one group that does 12 and another group that does 12. So and maybe have some things in between, but I already know my behind's gonna get kicked. So um, it's I'm serious like that. Especially that Wednesday where we were there from me and my rep got there. We got at the track like 6:45, 7 a.m. and we didn't leave the track until almost 10. Like it
Okay.
was crazy. Uh, there's a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes that people don't know. Oh, but we do it because we love it. I would love to, I might talk to Chad and see if he'd be interested because Chad has been working in sports cars since like mid '90s, like 97, and
Wow.
he actually worked for he was actually involved in kart too. So I'm definitely gonna try to see if he love to come on here and y'all kind of pick his brain a little bit because he when I tell you he knows everybody out there, that man knows everybody out there. So I'd love to see if he'd be interested in coming on here and kind of pick his brain.
Okay, that would be fantastic if you could pull that off. I would be
Mm,
endlessly appreciative of that. But but yeah, no, certainly my annual tradition for Daytona, I usually, set up at my desk and usually, copious amounts of coffee and do all 24. But of course, that's much easier, when I'm at home all day for the race. It's much easier to do that as opposed to being actually on site, 'cause especially in those night hours, it gets cold too. So, which also makes it a little rough because you want to just kind of curl up. But yeah, so no, thank you so much for taking the first part of your afternoon to come and chat with us for a little bit. Super cool to hear about some of the behind the scenes stuff with Daytona testing and just to hear a little bit about what you do. Um, like I said, would be certainly if you are up to it, would be super happy to have you back after Daytona wraps to sit and chat with us for a little bit. Um, but JT, you got some parting thoughts for us before we close out?
I don't.
Alrighty, in which event, thank you so much, everybody, for listening, and we will catch you in the next one. Until next time.